Gearbox confirms what we all knew about Nintendo Switch 2. It's very powerful. Earlier today, Nintendo posted on their Twitter a creator's voice featuring Gearbox, the developers of the new Borderlands 4 video game, which was announced to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, which surprised pretty much everybody. And in this creator's voice, we saw new footage of the game, along with some shocking statements from Gearbox that should at this point put to rest all the doubts about the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2. Before we get to the video, the like button's feeling kinda lonely, so do me a solid and hit that real quick. So the Nintendo Switch, the original one I should say, was always looked down on for obvious reasons, most notably how incapable its hardware was. It ran Nintendo games just fine, but anytime that a big third party tried to put its games on the Switch, well, let's just say that there's a reason that 2K never put another WWE 2K game on the system. 2K18 ran so badly, and Mortal Kombat 1 similarly had a lot of issues, which were patched in subsequent updates, but still, there were also a lot of games that were done very well on the Switch, but which still paled in comparison to the PS4 and Xbox One versions, like The Witcher 3 and Doom Eternal, for example, and even Kingdom Come Deliverance. They played decently on the Switch and were considered miracle ports, but they just never compared to the other versions. And this is where the Switch 2 comes in. It's looking like that is going to be a thing of the past. I've said this in prior videos, but it is my contention that the Switch 2 is in the future going to be the ultimate system, combining form factor with high-end hardware capabilities at an affordable price. Will it compare to whatever the newest graphics card from Nvidia is? No, of course not. But that's the thing, it doesn't need to. We'll get into that later, but I now have a AAA company that is indirectly confirming what I just said, and that is Gearbox, the developers of Borderlands 4. I should remind you that Borderlands 4 is not being ported from PS5 and the Xbox Series to the Switch 2. The Switch 2 version is being developed alongside those versions. In other words, they're the same game basically, on the Switch 2 and on the other systems. So from Gearbox themselves, I quote, "The Nintendo Switch 2 is very powerful." Keyword, very powerful. It's an incredible machine in a very tight form factor. We love being on the bleeding edge with our graphics and the experience that we're creating, and the Nintendo Switch 2 makes all that possible. So cutting in here, if the Switch 2 really was just another weak console like a lot of haters are still trying to say, even though we have all those comparison videos of Street Fighter 6 and Cyberpunk where the Switch 2 holds up, but if the Switch 2 really was that weak, then Gearbox would not be able to be on the bleeding edge of graphics like they said here. Gearbox goes on to say, "We don't feel like we're fighting the system. We feel like the system is enabling us, empowering us to make the best version of Borderlands 4 that we can." So there you have it, folks. Borderlands 4 is the newest game in a big AAA franchise, and the developers of this game are excited about the capabilities of the Switch 2. They said, quote, "The Switch 2 is enabling them to create the best version of Borderlands 4. This sounds like the nail in the coffin of every Nintendo hater out there. I don't think there's going to be even a single game in the next few years, and even in the next generation of PlayStation and Xbox consoles, that the Switch 2 is not going to be able to run. That's my hot take this video. This thing is here to stay. The progression of video game graphics have pretty much stagnated ever since late in the PlayStation 3 generation. Games like The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3 looked amazing, and in the PlayStation 4 generation, video game graphics saw another noticeable improvement, but not by much. It was nothing like going from PS2 to PS3. With each subsequent generation, that leap became smaller and smaller. And now we're at a point where the improvement isn't really even noticeable anymore, and yet the cost of developing these games is getting even more expensive. So I say all of that to say this: the Switch 2 is now in a spot where it can produce the same level of visual quality as a Xbox Series and a PS5, and whether it gets there via AI upscaling instead of hardware power, really that's completely irrelevant. It just means Nintendo went about it in the smartest way. So in addition to being able to pull off similar visuals, it can also run games at a similar quality. And for those of you who might say that Cyberpunk is pushing 40 frames per second or whatever, the normies are not gonna care. The Switch 1 couldn't even run Cyberpunk at all, and it ran The Witcher 3 pretty badly if I'm being honest, but it's on course to becoming the best-selling console of all time. That's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna keep bringing you more combo videos, online matches, and video game news. I'm SwitchPlayed. Done.